I'm Joe Matehs with Matehs Cattle Company from Upham, North Dakota, and I'm proactive with CattlActive. The product was introduced to me last fall of 2017, by my friend Jason Jensen. Started using it at weaning time with the calves. We run through on processing and give every calf a dose at processing time and put them back on the cow for 2 weeks and weaned them. And I was a little skeptical about it at first. The product was something brand new, of course, until 3 days after we'd weaned the calves, we had coccidiosis start. And I'd called Jason and said, I got coccidiosis starting. He said, well, can we tank treat those calves? I said, absolutely we can. So we tank treated 320 calves, and within 3 days later, I didn't use any cord, I didn't use anything else. And calves were cleared up, stayed on feed, and we're keeping productive. It's hit and miss, depends on the conditions of the year. Some years it's worse, some years it's not an issue. Last year happened to be one of them, and I'd gone through that, and it was 2 weeks of stress for me and the cattle, trying to keep them healthy and on feed, trying to keep them from dying. So to have it in a window of less than a week total from start to finish was less stress on me and less cost at the end of the day. The calves performed well. I'd sold earlier than I've ever sold before. We weaned them the 9th of November, and they went out just before Christmas, and we were weighing 775 on the steers. So the cattle performed very well. I attribute that to part of the CattlActive for keeping that rumen healthy and active to be able to use what I was putting in the feed bunk to produce pounds of beef. Because if I put it in the bunk, doesn't mean they're going to eat it, doesn't mean they're going to perform either. We also run a feed yard where we feed cattle. I haven't used it on the customer's cattle yet, but I try to plan to use that from the results I've seen this spring. On our cow-calf operation, I used it at the calves at birth. When they hit the ground, they got a 5 cc dose. We went through some pretty stressful calving this year. March was pretty nice, and we got into April and we had some terrible cold. We had frozen ears and we had stress on those calves hitting the ground. Then we got to March and we didn't have any moisture to speak of all spring. And we hit our temperatures hotter than I've seen in probably 15 years. We had dust and we were starting to get pneumonia in them calves. And I retreated 1 calf all spring out of 320. And normally I've got to retreat at least 5. When I retreated, I give them a 10 cc dose of CattlActive along with my treatment. And I saw very good performance as far as having to keep my retreats down. And when we branded the 3rd of June. And I had guys coming up and asking me why I'd put them calves in the feedlot instead of turning them out on grass. I said, oh, they were just healthy and doing well. And they were asking what I was doing to have such an even set of calves. And I've been doing this for 20 years, and this is the most even set of calves I've had. The health of the cattle was about the answer I could give them. They were healthy, they were doing well, they were being productive. So we were pretty excited to have such a good response on a nice set of calves that day, bring them to the fire. We sorted them about noon for branding, and we had them sorted off of them cows. They were off for about 6-7 hours. By that night, there was a few that were still diehards trying to find out what was going on again, but everybody quieted down. By the next morning, they were all back on the cow. No problems with going off of milk. Everybody was healthy and comfortable. With the dose of CattlActive at branding, I can say that those calves went back on the cow very well. I'm excited about my set of calves, actually. I'm excited to see what we're gonna do. We've gotten some rain, so we're gonna have enough feed. So we've got genetic potential, plus we've got the environment working in our favor. The good Lord gave us some rain at the right time to give us enough feed. And with a nice set of calves that we've had at branding, I'm real excited to see what these calves are gonna come in the fall. We started our first set of calves off last fall at weaning. This fall is gonna be an exciting time to run them through the chute and see what we have coming in off of grass. I think a lot better than last year. We had some troubles with that coccidiosis, and with the dry this spring, we've had some issues with the pneumonias. Like I stated earlier, we had some problems with the dust pneumonias and the temperature fluctuations. So I'm excited to see what our calves come in on the fall and how we wean weight-wise in comparison to years past. On my cow herd, I'm going to use CattlActive on the cows at PG time. I've got a theory that if I can keep these first calf heifers, they're rumen healthy at weaning time, I'll be able to keep them cows in the herd longer. We worry about the calves and the stress about them learning how to eat out of a bunk, drink out of a water tank or a water, but sometimes we forget about the cow on the other side. We just wean them and they're going to be gone out on the pasture or wherever they're going to go. My plan is if we can wean them heifers, first calf heifers, off and keep them in the herd for 5 years, we tend to lose a lot of between first and second calf cows up in this part of the world just because of the stress and trying to raise a calf and get enough feed to produce the next one. So if we can keep that rumen healthy, I believe that we can keep that cow in the herd longer with our initial investment of breeding her that very first year. The calves that I had used last fall with the CattlActive, we'd cycled those heifers this spring, and our conceptions rate were fantastic. We'd cycled the cattle and we had an 84% cycle rate. So I'm excited to see how those cattle responded with the initial CattlActive that we'd used the fall of 17 to bring them full cycle this fall and see how our conceptions have held through in the next spring at calving time. 100%. I have done that already. At branding time, we had people asking about the calves and how well they were doing, what we were doing different, what we were feeding. The best answer as I could give was them cattle were healthy. They were being productive. If we can't have a productive animal, it doesn't do us any good, and it doesn't help out the animal. They're laying around, they're lethargic. If we can keep them cattle productive, we're being good stewards and we're treating them the way that we're supposed to be doing it. The problem comes in when we have cattle that aren't healthy. It puts stress on them and stress on us. And if we can keep them animals stress-free, it keeps us healthier as well and more productive.
Thank you for watching CattlActive on our YouTube network. If you want more information, please check out one of the videos to the right or check us out on Facebook.